Happy Wednesday! Welcome to SJU. We have so much breaking, important, vital, necessary to your life news to talk to you about today. Most of it, though, is coming in the last 30 seconds, and it just might save your life. So stay tuned. I'm Roth, Cornet. That's Spencer Gilbert.
Yes.
Billy the Business.
Watch time saves lives.
Saves our lives, kids. You and I have not been on a camera together in, I think, a year.
Yeah, I don't think we've done 2019 yet. Someone can fact check us.
Yeah.
Cool. Hi.
Check the tape. Hi, you. Miss you. See you every day, but miss you anyway. Dan Murrell.
Hi.
Hello. Let's talk about it. Matt Reeves might cast Colin Farrell in The Batman.
Yep. Good show.
All right. Story number 2.
Moving on. No, we got to talk about this thing. We really just do. We have to talk about it. This is via Deadline. If the deal closes, he will round out the trio of villains in the Matt Reeves Batman movie starring Rob Pattinson. That is Paul Dano as the Riddler, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Also, according to The Wrap, in talks to join the movie is Andy Serkis as your friendly neighborhood butler, Alfred. Okay. It's weird. This is interesting because every individual piece of this meal I like.
Okay.
However, it starts to feel to me like it's a eucalyptus salad with a dark chocolate cake on one plate, accompanied by garlic mashed potatoes, just for a little old school, and then, I don't know, something in Willy Wonka's factory, because it all together is starting to feel a little weird, and that could be good or bad. Thoughts?
Inject a little chaos into this.
Yeah.
I'm full Joker. This movie should do Joker stuff.
Just burn it?
Yeah, no, we got to liven this thing up a little bit.
We do?
You know? Well, yeah. I mean, we've done how many times? This will be what? It's second on-screen movie, third if you count Frank Gorshin Riddler movie, third Riddler on movie screens, plus the one that was just on Gotham. This will be our, let's see, we got Lee Merriweather, Michelle, for this will be our 4th Catwoman, so we're Catwoman number 4 in the movies. And then if we have Penguin, this will be, this will be our second, third with Burgess Meredith on a movie Penguin, and then our 7th or 6th or 7th. It's like, man, go crazy, go nuts. I don't want to see another.
They are taking your note.
I don't need another movie of Batman standing on a ledge, looking down at Gotham City. And I've seen it many, many times.
He'll do that though.
He'll do it, but that can't be your entire style or tone. Like I'm on board. Andy Serkis. Every live, not just, he's great at mocap, but I think the other thing that people overlook is like every live action performance I've seen from Andy Serkis, he like rocks it. Like Clow, he had such a weird manic energy and just an unpredictability that he brought to that. Even like the Captain and King Kong, and like he's always interesting to watch when he's himself on screen. I'm all for it. Let's get weird. I'm all for all these
people. I mean, every individual actor, I think, and I am 100% on board. Yell at me if you want. I'm sure you will. With Rob Pattinson as Batman. Sure. He's a really good actor. Check him out in everything other than Twilight, or that too if you like it. I don't judge, I think is what we're trying to say, Billy. But it does feel like a lot.
But he's not very good at
villains.
Justified. I mean, I just want to know the conversation, the A to C. Like, how did we go from Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, and then end up at Colin Farrell?
By the way, we haven't ended up there yet.
We're ending.
We're close.
We're pulling into
That's
the.
What we thought with Jonah Hill.
It's like we said with Jonah Hill too.
Well, we've been hurt before.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hold off till the ink is on the dotted line here, because I'm not gonna get excited about Sexy Penguin until it's confirmed.
Also, I will say this: this is a hot cast. I think we should own that. I think we should talk about this. I think not enough people are talking about this. This is a very attractive group of supervillains that they have amassed.
I mean, Disney just did Hot Jafar, and Aladdin made $1 billion. So people want hot villains.
Yeah, you know,
hot villains are in.
Hot takes here at SJU.
Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, from certain angles, sure. Pattinson, sexy mother effer. Colin Farrell, best male celebrity sex tape. I'll say it.
100%. Yeah. Did not answer that. Didn't hear it. Was talking about a different thing.
I prefer the Tommy Lee video, but I am a Motley Crue fan.
Yeah.
Come on.
He is the captain of that ship.
You know what?
I saw Colin Farrell in person.
If we did the top 5 celebrity sex tapes, you'll know.
Okay.
That'll be our most popular video, and B, we're dead. We're 100% dead.
That's when we're just like, we don't need money on this channel.
Screw it.
We're gonna go full Gawker.
That's very low on my list. Hulk Hogan is
I look
dead last.
Not even an honorable mention.
Not even, no.
Yeah.
Like it's the Razzie.
Yeah. Colin Farrell also can act. Good Irish actor.
He's great.
Unrelated thoughts, but those things are both true.
The thing with the Penguin is, I'll say it, I think in the comic books and kind of in the cartoons a little bit, he's an incredibly boring character. Like, they gave him some Penguin characteristics, but he's just kind of like a weird looking dude who owns a nightclub and doesn't really do a whole lot. So I love the Burton Danny DeVito because it's nothing to do with the comics, but they chose a lane and boy did they commit to it. So if we're getting a Colin Farrell, clearly they have some sort of like vision in mind for the character. Great. Penguin is one of the few, like Joker, it's like we all have expectations. Catwoman, expectations. Penguin's like as far as I'm concerned, the slate is pretty blank, so go ahead and fill it out.
Best part of Gotham, though, for the season I watched it.
That's true. Yeah, like that was like an interesting hybrid take of a little bit of the DeVito, not the grossness, but a little bit of like the buffoonery, I guess, a little bit, and some of like the comic book stuff. But I mean, who watched Gotham all the way through?
No, I mean the Penguin. Yeah, he did. So here's my thought. Nice guy too. Really nice guy. He's actually really. I'm going to tell a very quick off-topic story, but I'll make it brief. I promise. The actor who plays the Penguin, which Ryan is going to pull up for me now because I feel bad because I can't remember his name. Robin. Yes. Thank you.
Ironic.
Yeah, ironic.
The actor who played the Penguin is named
on Gotham. He's a really good actor. I think he was the best part of that show. But he had actually, before he got the role, I think was like part of the internet culture of commenting on things, and then was cast in Gotham and started working with Jada. And he saw Jada Pinkett, and he saw how people would talk about her online, and it like radically changed his perspective about that behavior because he really loved her in person, and she was so nice and so cool. So I think my point is this: be nice. Also, Matt Reeves. Here's my question for you, and this is a real question. I love what he did with Planet of the Apes. I like the fact that this is looking to be kind of weird, even though it's a lot of villains, which always makes me nervous. In my mind, I'm seeing like a very kinetic hybrid movie of like, over a 24-hour period, he has to solve a crime, and he is like very quickly and in a kinetic way detecting, and he's quickly just going through these villains because he's eliminating them as suspects, and that's why we meet and know them. And it's some kind of like hybrid of a noir and the film that Pattinson did, Good Time. That's the movie that exists in my mind, Dan. But does that feel like a Matt Reeves movie? Am I going to be hurt?
I mean, I don't. It depends on how close you're clinging to that. If that's the only thing that you'll accept, then perhaps. But if it's the tone you're going for, then I think probably not. Yeah, he's but he also brought a very deep soulfulness to Planet of the Apes. So
it was slow. It took its time.
It did, yeah.
But you also had Apes on Horses.
Yes, you did.
And the same franchise, I think that's kind of what ended up sort of hurting War for the Planet of the Apes, which I thought was as strong as the rest of the films, but you went from an ape on a horse double wielding a machine gun to a very kind of thoughtful meditation on conflict and war and humanity, and he's capable of both. So I think that he can certainly blend both a kinetic energy but a deeper thoughtfulness. I think he's capable of doing that. I know a lot of people sort of pigeonhole him as like, oh yeah, action guy. It's like he can do both.
Yeah, no, he's great. But that's my thought is like, Matt, I presume you're listening. Take the notes.
I love that pitch. I love that pitch. It's a good pitch.
Thank you. Hopefully,
I think it should
Warner
just
Brothers
be
is...
it should be a Batman origin story, and then at the end, Alfred hands him a flash drive and says, "There's a bunch of new supervillains in Gotham,"
good, yeah.
and each one is just Colin Farrell, and it's like, "I'm the Penguin," and Paul Dano goes, "I'm the Riddler," and he has little icons for each one of them.
Does he do magic? This Riddler?
I do not want to see pearls bouncing on a sidewalk in this movie.
Yeah.
Please,
You gotta
no
kill the
pearls.
Waynes.
No.
You gotta kill the Waynes.
No,
Yeah.
they just did it in a movie that didn't even have Batman in it.
It was so frustrating.
No pearls bouncing on sidewalks.
All the villains will all be holding the gun at the same time, pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I just want one version in which they're like, "God damn it, enough!" and they turn on I just am so tired of it. We don't ever need to see these people die again. Why do we have this thirst
It's
for
like
their
the
murder?
Simpsons couch gag. Like everyone gets to do their own little subtle twist on it.
But it's not subtle. It's the same thing over and over again.
And it's not a
Pearls
twist.
bouncing on a
It's
sidewalk.
neither subtle nor a twist. It's the same exact
They're in
scene
a dark
200
alley
times.
outside of a theater.
Oh my God, it's a shooter. What to do?
It's so
I'm probably
funny
gonna-
because at least in the movies, none of them ever use it as like a callback. They never use it as like a device later in the movie. Like he sees something. Like they do it in Batman Forever, but with flowers. It's like you had pearls, man. What do the pearls mean?
If Joaquin Phoenix had hit the Waynes with a train, I would have been all about it.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's different and unexpected. If he'd been like engineering a train and flattened them on the rail, like that's a different way to do it. But no, it was pearls on the sidewalk.
I mean, if they're on a track, they deserve to die at that
Right,
point.
yeah, you
like,
gotta
they're,
move.
come on, what are you
the
doing
arm
walking
wasn't
on the
down
track?
because he's crazy.
He's crazy.
Oh, got it.
Chaos.
That's Joker stuff.
Just chaos.
That's Joker stuff.
It's a metaphor for the runaway train inside of his mind.
Ooh,
Oh, the Joker.
juicy.
So
Thank you guys for watching our program and subscribing to this channel. If you haven't already, please do so. We're fun and entertaining, and we'll dance for dollars, basically. So hopefully you enjoy that.
it's literally stripping.
Is that what that is?
We're hustlers.
Private
Is that what you're
dancer.
saying?
Can we talk about hustlers? No? We made a documentary called Never Surrender about Galaxy Quest. Dan made a new trailer that was just released yesterday
I did.
on the
It's
Screen
fun.
Junkies channel. It's a very fun trailer.
My editing boots back on to make a non-honest trailer. I mean, it's honest about how good the movie is, but it's not a
takedown.
branded honest trailer.
What if you guys did a takedown of our doc?
Yeah. Well, honest
would hurt
trailers
my
aren't always
feelings.
takedowns.
It'd all be behind the scenes.
Yeah. Oh, good. Moving on. Never Surrender. It's about Galaxy Quest. The anniversary of Galaxy Quest is coming up this year, actually, in December. It came out in 1999 in December, the year of the movie, Dan.
Right at Christmas time.
And right at Christmas. So this is one of the last movies to come out in the year of the movie. And in honor of that, on November 26th of this year, we are having a Fandom event, which you guys have been great. And thank you so much for participating with that and taking your picture with your tickets and sending it in. And today, I have a question from one such person and a tease for tomorrow where we're going to be dealing with Wookiee Chuckles,
Okay.
Well, yesterday we
which
had,
I read at first as Wookiee
Oh,
Chucky.
yeah, yesterday.
yesterday we had Jew Go Girl.
Jew go girl.
Oh, shit, I missed you. Go, girl.
Go
Jew go girl.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I feel like we were destined to be pretty close. Logan Scratch asks, what city or state in the U.S. should be shown more often in movies? His vote is the Plains or the Poor South.
I'm going to say Florida, man. All the craziest stories come out of Florida, and we never set movies there.
Did you not watch Crawl?
Did you not watch The Beach Bum?
Crawl.
I
Beach
did
Bum was
see
the
Crawl.
most Florida movie ever
Yes.
made.
But honestly, just
about
take
the Florida Project?
take like a month's worth of headlines from Florida stories and just make that a movie.
Watch The Beach Bum. That is exactly what The Beach Bum is.
I have not seen The Beach Bum, but you have sold me.
It should just be called Florida.
Things
It's
happen.
Matthew McConaughey doing everything you imagine happens in Florida on a daily basis.
With him specifically doing
With
it.
him, yes.
Yeah.
With him, yeah.
And
he
Martin Lawrence
embodies
and
the
Zac
state.
Efron as two different spectrums of Florida man. It's
Yeah.
great.
All right, I'm
And Jonah
sold.
Hill, who I'm not kidding you, gives one of the best supporting performances of the year in that movie, as he's just going nuts. No one told him what to do, and he's just like, I'm going to do it all. That's everybody in the movie does that, by the way. Everyone is just like, I'm doing everything. Can I do everything? And they're like, yep.
Yep.
It's Florida.
Snoop Dogg's there.
Come on, man.
Wait, what was the other Matthew McConaughey movie that you sold me on this year with the spoiler?
Where he's inside the
Serenity.
Serenity.
Yes, yeah. Once you told me, I was like, that's not a movie, and then I watched it, and it was great.
It does not make any sense.
I haven't
That
seen
twist
it.
makes no sense.
But if you've ever, you can't even talk about it without spoiling it.
Yeah.
So watch Serenity if you want a horrible but amazing.
Honestly,
All right.
spoil it for yourself because you won't believe it's real, and then you'll watch it and you'll be like, I can't believe Spencer didn't lie to me.
All right, well, let's not.
Yeah. Sorry. You'll watch it and say that this twist doesn't work. Like, obviously, I was misinformed because if this is what the movie's about, then this doesn't make sense. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, no, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's just bonkers.
I want to talk about weirdest twists in movie, even though just one movie. Every movie, every twist in one movie. One of the weirdest ones is Sunshine, but let's get off that topic because we do have to talk about Jennifer Aniston's new show, Bombing, and we have to talk about the fact this is an aberration of nature. Like, seriously, this last story upsets me so profoundly. This is real. Like, it really, 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 truly bothers me so deeply, so profoundly on a cellular level, and Billy is completely apathetic to it. So we'll get to that in a minute. But first, you have to name that state.
Oh, what state should I don't know. Southwest, New Mexico. I like Breaking Bad. I like all the Breaking Bad-averse. I like returning to those kind of sun-blasted but also depressing towns of like strip malls and stuff like that. Like you don't see that too often because it's not aesthetically pleasing.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a cool place to hang out.
In fact, it's not aesthetically pleasing.
I would say he mentions it in the thing, the poor South. It generally seems that movies about the South are either about the poor South or the racist South.
Yeah.
And as someone who comes from the South, there are actually very few movies that just embrace the side of the Southern culture that is like all of the great things.
Yeah.
Like there are plenty of things about the South, just like every region of this country and the world, that are not great. But it is also a place of legitimate, just like selflessness, kindness, warmth. I feel like there's a dark side. Obviously, they're rooted in history, and many movies have gone into that. But I also think that there is a genuineness there that you don't get anywhere else in the country. And I wish that there were more movies that, it's important, obviously, to spotlight issues and problems, but I also think you can spotlight positive things as well. And so not a movie that like would in any way sanitize actual history, but the side of the culture in the South that is rooted in love and warmth, and it's there, but also just a lot of times, because a movie about love is not necessarily going to sell tickets, so it goes with other routes. But I think it'd be nice to see that side featured more. There's some movies that do it, but not a lot.
Yeah, my family is I was born in the South, and my family is Southern. And the thing that I don't see, occasionally you'll get this, but there really is a lot of character, and to the South. And if you look at the novels, particularly, if you look at like Flannery O'Connor, has always been one of my favorites, and she's such. These worlds are so richly drawn, and these characters are so richly drawn. You never really see that in movies. My favorite line of hers from a short story that's about a bank robber is, "He would have been a good man if he had been killed every day of his life." Does that not sell you on this woman? She's a writer. Listen to the one-lines. I agree with you. Like, the South is sort of depicted in very narrow lanes, generally speaking. Good. Streaming wars. That's when we would have had like a.
We have a thing, but I think I accidentally deleted it off the Treadcaster.
Yeah.
Just imagine a newspaper.
It's an old-timey newspaper.
It's
a streaming wars.
Streaming
wars. So Apple TV, not surprisingly, not doing that well with their television show launches, with their new narrative series. According to Parrot Analytics, which examined 24-hour period following the launch, the only show that they had was Jason Momoa's C that cracked the top 20 of, basically they're looking at new streaming shows and levels of interest, and that's the only one that people were actually interested in. And I mostly think it's because they were confused, because because every time I
like Aquaman.
truly every time, or they thought it was Aquaman. Every time I see this, like basically it depicts a future in which everyone is blind.
Yes.
And then he has 2 children, both of whom can see. How they figure this out while they're babies, unclear to me. Does make me curious. And then that apparently is considered very, very dangerous, and shenanigans ensue. So that, but this is interesting to me, the morning show, which is Jennifer Aniston's big return to television. She went to Instagram. It was a whole thing. Everyone was like, oh my God, you got Jennifer Aniston coming back to television. Tanked. Absolutely no interest in the show. And this is after Apple spent like $40 million in advertising around these programs.
They did?
Well, I'm pretty sure it says here.
I'm just saying, like, I would say the biggest thing of Apple TV is, like, I didn't even know. It just showed up one day on my Apple TV. It was like, hey, by the way, did you know you have a year of this thing?
40 million's not that much.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Network.
You're right. I just, like, I see no billboards for, and I see Mandalorian billboards every 2 stops, on my drive in, but I've never seen anything Apple TV.
Well, you know why that probably is, though? This is a slightly different thought, but 40 million is not that much for all of these different shows, first of all. But second of all, is that probably because Disney is here in LA, headquartered here, like the people that run those marketing teams make sure that their bosses are seeing billboards. I wonder if they have them in Silicon Valley for Apple. Like, I'd be curious. So look, this is not Apple is a tech company. People do not have brand attachment to it for things like television shows. Nobody wants a new thing right now when there's so many other new things happening, and they really had relatively few shows coming out of the gate, and it's not like they have a whole library on top of it to make you remember when you were young.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of, as a dated guy, I kind of have a bit of an issue with I don't think it's that surprising, honestly.
No, I don't either.
But only because, like, they're comparing it against every new streaming show that came out in 2019. All of those streaming shows are on services that have been established for years. Hulu, Amazon, like, those are streaming services that people already have had for quite a while, are accustomed to using. And you're comparing those numbers with numbers for shows that are premiering on a new service that no one has. To watch it, you have to sign up for it. I mean, I think there's definitely a conversation to be had about how the shows are performing, but I also think to compare numbers on a new service that you have to sign up for or download or whatever to watch against shows on services that people have had for years or months or however long, I think that's a bit of a flawed methodology, because it's not an even playing field. It's basically, it'd be like saying, like, comparing broadcast ratings to, like, and here's what the first cable network rating pulled in. It's like, well, yeah, but people have to learn about cable. They have to sign up. They have to. I just don't think it's a one-to-one comparison. If Apple TV Plus had been around for 5 years and all of these new shows debuted and the numbers are like this, that'd be one thing. But I mean, the number I want to see, they're going to be lower because you have Hulu, which millions of people have, and Apple TV Plus, which no one has.
Like, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but from when I looked this up, the thing that I find more striking about this, is that if you have an Apple TV, I think it just comes bundled.
So so that's what I was saying. Like, I turned on my Apple TV like last week, and it just was like there. It was like, hey, did you know you have a year free? Like, I didn't even know this was ready yet. But it's buried within an app that's been on the Apple TV for almost a year now, and the way that it's the new shows are in there, it's like interspersed. Did you watch any of them? I watched Morning Show last night, the pilot. It was good. I would certainly not throw down any money to watch 1 or 2 shows, though. But it's also interspersed with, like, because the whole Apple TV, the premise of that app was going to be like, hey, you watch your ESPN app a lot, you watch your Hulu app a lot, we'll put your shows you watch all in one place. Well, when you throw in the new Apple shows also in there, like, I just probably ignored it for the first couple of days because I didn't even realize it had launched.
Oh, and that's what I mean. It's like people aren't accustomed to looking for Apple TV Plus the same way that they are for Hulu. I think, I mean, this obviously proves that they did not establish a Mandalorian type show that is going to be, I'm sure if you compare Mandalorian numbers to these numbers, it'll be way higher because Disney has produced a signature show. Apple obviously was hoping for that with the morning show and didn't. So I think that's definitely worth looking at. But, I also think that the idea of looking at it compared to like other numbers on streaming services that have existed for a while is a bit, it's a little apples to oranges, I think, because you're basically I didn't even mean to. You're basically comparing the launch of the service against numbers from already established services, which I don't think is necessarily... I
don't disagree with you, but I would say in terms of marketing, this launch was a D-, if not flat out F. The fact that like it just popped up like it was a U2 album in my Apple TV. Like,
what do you think, you're Beyonce? Right. No, really. Like,
but literally they just
only Beyonce could do that.
I didn't purchase anything. It was just like, hey, you clearly have an Apple TV. You get a year. It was like when you go to Magic Mountain and you bring an empty Coke can, they're like, get the next 45 years free. Like, it already felt cheap to me, the fact that they were just like, just have it. I was like, I don't want it.
Well, they just want to inflate their numbers and say that, even if they're operating at a loss and not making any money off of it, being like, we have this huge subscriber base, and then if they stick around, we can start charging them more and more and more and more.
Well, and that's I will agree with you there as far as the launch goes, which is that, I'm an Apple customer. I have an Apple TV. I have an iPhone, and
because you can watch it on your iPhone too, right?
Yeah,
anything.
But
any
that's the
Apple
thing
product,
is they
right?
have me basically as a captive consumer in the sense that they could have, sent a push notification, etc. And I might have gotten an email, but I get a lot of, everyone gets a lot of emails. Like I got no push or anything from Apple saying like, hey, Apple TV is here. Click this button on your phone. Like, they have the capability to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, you compared it to the U2 thing, but I think this is way less intrusive than what they did with U2, where they could go way harder with it, and every time you open up your phone, your lock screen is Jason Momoa C.
Yeah.
But it was crazy that it's like
they have the data to target it to you specifically.
Yeah.
Like
we know
Jennifer Aniston would have popped up for me.
We know that Disney Plus is November 12th. There's countdowns. Like every page I go to, like IMDb or something, there's like page takeovers. Like I still couldn't tell you exactly when Apple TV launched. It must have been within the last week.
November
that's
1st, apparently.
Yeah. Like I accidentally clicked the Apple TV button trying to wake my remote up, and it just said, hey, you have this now? Like, that's terrible marketing from like the biggest disruptor in the technology game of all time.
They were.
Yeah, they were.
Exactly.
They were.
Yeah. They have not been for a long time.
Yeah, but that is an interesting point. You talk about he's not alive anymore, but Jobs, if he knew how to do anything, it was market, and construct a story, right? They had this whole narrative about be a rebel, break things down. It's like, you're the man. You know what I mean? Like, what are you rebelling against? This is like an internal thing that's happening for you, Jobs, and it's happening in the world's space. But they've done nothing really to bring attention to this. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. They certainly, though, aren't hurting $4
yet.
Yeah.
Do you think they knew that they had bad content?
Well, that's the other part of it.
These were middling reviews around all of it.
No critical hits.
So they weren't gonna plant their flag and like, here's our new shows. That they're gonna maybe wait for the next wave. Like the space race one's supposed to be good. They're greenlighting new series and stuff all the time.
For All Mankind's already out.
Yeah,
it was part of the launch.
That's the only one.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
For All Mankind, though, is actually the only one that got moderately good reviews, and it's the one that doesn't have like a big star attached. It's pretty interesting. One of the things that I think is really interesting is just how making anything creatively, you have so little control on the final product. You can put everything together that on paper looks like that should work and that should be amazing, and then this random thing over here is the one that works, for whatever reason.
Saying about Morning Show?
It's very mixed.
Well, I thought it was fine.
Morning Show also
was not a huge.
That's true. Yeah.
Morning Show also they bought this thing and started developing it, and then it happened, like in real life, and
that makes it harder to make drama.
Makes it less dramatic. It makes people, and I think it makes a lot of people go like, I don't want to watch that. Like, that's the news. I don't want to watch that. Was this based on some Matt Lauer thing? Like,
that's what I thought it was.
Well, people think that, and they're like, I don't want to watch that. Like, that's also just how the real world can intrude sometimes, because it went from this sort of like backstage thing to like, oh, is this like some kind of like a ripoff based on Law and Order type thing? And they can't control that, but that's just those are the cards they were dealt.
Well, and they're trying to look at things that are still, like, I think people are not quite reconciled to. Like, we just don't even know quite what all of this means in the final analysis yet. And also, to some degree, I think people are like, yeah, when I want to tune into entertainment, I don't want it to stress me out necessarily. Or I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched the show, but what I heard about
Chernobyl did amazing, and it's like,
incredibly well made, but that's also in the 1980s. That took place a long time ago. And I'm not saying that the effects of Chernobyl.
The TV show.
No, I'm talking about, but I'm talking about, yes, Chernobyl, the TV show. Yeah. Was great, but the event took place a long time ago. And so you don't have the same, like, of course, it's very real, but you don't necessarily have the same, like, fear response or triggers that might happen. The immediacy.
Yeah, you're getting headlines about it every day.
If there had been some sort of a nuclear plant, disaster or meltdown, or even just, something like a 3 Mile Island, right before Chernobyl came out, I think that a lot of people that would have recontextualized the show entirely, and I think some people might have been like, I don't want to watch that.
It just feels too real.
It's too real, which that's sometimes that can be good and sometimes that can be bad. I think it's just sometimes you are you can be helped or hurt. We talked about Joker. Joker was just, they didn't plan it, but it happened to hit in a cultural moment where so many of the issues in the film are also cultural, being talked about in the culture, and that worked in the movie's favor. So it can help you, it can hurt you. There's just no way. Sometimes the real world just intrudes. For good or ill. For good or ill.
And then the other thing that I heard, and I don't know because I haven't watched it just creatively, is that over the course of the 3 episodes, I think they released to critics early, was that it was like grappling with these issues, but then eventually kind of fell back and defaulted to just kind of like behind the scenes dramatic antics and didn't really fulfill its destiny.
Well, I only watched the first one, but again, to the launch of Apple TV, they have the first 3 episodes there, but I couldn't tell you what the schedule is. Like, okay, so I watched the first 3. Did it drop 3 more later, or how does it work? I have no idea. The service is so poorly laid out for such like a once incredible company. It's almost staggering that this is like, because remember a long time ago, you and I thought Apple could be the real dark horse in this whole thing, and now it's like, wow, what a fart in church this came out to be.
They've made one mind-boggling.
In a very quiet church.
They've made one
loud fart. It was both loud and smelly.
They've made like one mind-boggling decision after another for me. I still can't wrap my head around the Final Cut Pro thing.
Oh my God.
They were making legitimate inroads.
This is so inside baseball, but it is. I agree. It's
Avid was the absolute unquestioned industry standard,
dominant until Final Cut Pro came.
Final Cut Pro came along and made significant inroads. And then they decided to essentially make it impossible to use in a professional setting and allowed Adobe and Premiere
they just handed them their lunch.
And basically all that work that they did for Final Cut Pro to get it into the
right
industry.
To Premiere.
They handed it to Adobe. And basically bowed out of the race. It is still...
It's infuriating.
It
really is.
It's mind-boggling to me.
It's so annoying because Final Cut Pro was so much, to me, it was so much more intuitive. It had all of the things that you would want out of an Apple product. It was sophisticated but intuitive. It was agile. Like, it was such a great tool. And then I don't like Premiere. Sorry, I really don't. And then Avid's the worst. So, like, what did you do? And then you made it this consumer-based product that a bunch of numbnuts didn't know how to use anyway. It's completely limited, and you just handed everybody your lunch. Why did you do that? Why did you do that?
I quite like Premiere, actually. It filled in a lot of the gap. First of all, the interface is almost identical to Final Cut Pro. They made it so that you can do that.
It doesn't look the same, and it doesn't. It's not as visually driven.
Similar.
No, I don't think it's
actually better. I think it's a better interface. That you don't have to render stuff. I think it offers a lot of advantages. And
well, I doubt you would have to render stuff at this iteration of Final Cut if they had kept going.
I
use iMovie if I need to make something.
GarageBand here.
And that has been your We Don't Give a Shit minute. But Dan, you're the editor, as we were talking about before. I have long since not edited anything, so but I loved Final Cut and I really didn't like Premiere, so We're going to get to our final story, which is incredibly chilling in my mind. But first, I want to print an in-show retraction. The line was, she would have been a good woman if she had been killed every day of her life. You see how memory works? And they had kidnapped a family. They had not robbed a bank. I think they did rob a bank before that. My point is this. We also want to call out to a charity. So this month...
Chilling.
Not. But I'm mixing it up. So this month we're shining a light on Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and you can definitely learn more about that organization. We have a link in the bio below, but we just wanted to give a call out to them and to anyone in the world that is doing good and positive things with their lives, because on the other hand, we have people that have cast James Dean posthumously in a film about Vietnam, which I am not happy about. This comes via THR. Like, this is the opposite of doing something good in the world. If you wanted to look, oh, look, it's Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and they're like, oh, let me help you. And then they're like, what would the opposite of that be? The opposite of that would be casting a dead James Dean. Don't do that. He was a human being with a soul and a mind. It was his artistry was born of his life experience, of how he felt in the moment, of who he was spiritually in that moment. He was a living entity. You cannot replicate that with a freaking computer and then call it James Dean. That is gross. It is sick. It's egregious. It's completely removing his autonomy. It's completely removing the idea that artistry is born of anything of true essence in the world. My point, okay, so the movie is called Finding Jack. And he's literally got a supporting role in this film, and they've taken footage of him and images, and they do have the support of his family. I don't care. I really don't. This is too far down the uncanny deep fakes rabbit hole. It's too much. Back up. We found the boundary.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But what do you guys think? Because you're also allowed to have an opinion about
Number one, this is going to look atrocious.
Probably.
Yes.
Number two, because Ang Lee spent $135 million to get living actor Will Smith to create a rendered CG character of him, and recently launched Magic City Films, I'm guessing, does not have those kinds of
straight out of Atlantic City.
So number one, I think it's going to look terrible. Number two, I think this is a publicity stunt.
Well, yeah.
Well, clearly,
I think they have this movie that no one would care about, and they're like, how do we get people to talk about it? And they're like, let's cast James Dean.
Yeah. So this is what they said. This is a Vietnam-era film, again, called Finding Jack. And they said, quote, this is from the director, Anton Ernst.
Sequel to Robin Williams' Jack.
And they go, we searched high...
Prequel to Simple Jack.
This quote, you know what else bothers me? This quote is so smug. Listen to this smug quote. We searched high and low for the perfect character portraying the role of Rogan. Which has some extremely complex character arcs, and after months of research, we decided on James Dean. Mic drop. Fuck you. God. Come on, that deserved it.
You're our boss. We get yelled at for doing that.
No, that's a well-made point, Dan. Point well made.
Frolic you.
Frolic you. Yeah, I was doing Frolic for a period of time. This really makes me mad. Like, do you guys not have strong feelings about this?
No.
I mean, if it was Warner Brothers or Universal, this would be horrific. I was already not on board with this with Peter Cushing. If this wasn't just completely just like total John Goodman and matinee style hucksterism.
Yeah.
I just think it's not going to be James Dean. It's going to look atrocious.
Yeah.
And they're going to be ridiculed and mocked for it. I would be much more disturbed if, he would never do this, but if Denis Villeneuve or somebody
he
was
would
just
never
like,
do this.
I've cast James Dean in Dune,
Yeah.
and he will be like
it.
that would be
Everyone's in Dune.
That's true. He's the only actor that's not in Dune.
Yeah.
That would be far more disturbing for me because I'd be like, oh, this is gaining legitimacy. Like, I think this is a cheap stunt. I agree. It's somewhat despicable because James Dean is not just any other actor.
Yeah.
Part of his whole mystique is his limited filmography. It's that there are only 3 James Dean movies and that's it. So to be like, I'm gonna make the 4th is just completely ridiculous.
And in Giant,
insane.
he had a supporting role. I mean, James Dean had 3 movies, one of which he was a supporting character. He was great, but he was a supporting character in Giant. So really, you're looking at Rebel Without a Cause and East of Eden, and he has become an icon with 2 performances. And that's not because of how he looked, partially. He was a good-looking guy. But, like, it was 100% born of his ability to be vulnerable on screen, and that's a human being who whichever actor they have to get to voice him, like this. I agree with you. It's clearly a stunt for this company, but it is so poor. This like badly done, poor taste.
I agree with you guys. I'm totally in agreement. But just in case, should we buy the
I love that you can recognize the windup at this point, Roth. We're all really
should we pool our resources and approach the Rodney Dangerfield estate in case they make more Caddyshack? I think we could probably afford maybe a Dangerfield, a DeLuise, perhaps.
Hey, Judge, over here.
And Dan does the voice. I think we got it.
We're gonna get laid again.
You wanted John Candy, right?
I did. I want my Cool Runnings too.
We can't afford that.
It's not John. I feel like it's like Blade Runner or something. It's not him. It's not John. What is this?
Don't you kind of admire the Bobby Bowfingerness of all of this, though?
I really don't.
It's like after the gross net production, sure. In reality, every movie you can get James Dean to be in your movie. It's whatever. It's gonna happen for the next 400 years. Dan, it looks awful today. In 40 years, you won't be able to tell the difference.
Did I just say, how long did Ang Lee work on Gemini Man?
200 years, as far as
this movie's supposed to open
in a year.
1 year from today. And they haven't started this.
What if they get like a good James Dean impersonator and just tell people they created him?
Do you guys remember Jim Jab?
Yeah.
James Dean is going to look like Jim Jab.
Yes.
He's going to be like, it's like still pictures of James Dean.
Why is he singing Old Town Road?
You are lying to yourself if you think this movie comes out in a year and you're not going to see what they did to James Dean in this movie. It's brilliant. The car crash factor of this is so high that they're probably going to sell a boatload of Redbox rentals.
We already have the Cats movie for that.
Yeah.
That slot is filled.
I am hereby giving you permission. In fact, today I will go shoot on the green screen. God forbid, if anything happens and I cannot be an SJU anymore, you can insert me into any Screen Junkies video that you want. In fact, you could CGI my face onto, I don't know, Ed Greer. Make it fun.
Yeah.
Do you want to know?
Do not give permission. Just so that we know. You can take all of my organs, but not my soul.
Did you read this thing about Nelson Mandela?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God! What?
Kurt. He's
going to be in the Batman.
He might be. Anton Hertz, the co-director of this movie, said, this was a further quote. He said, our partners in South Africa are very excited about this, as this technology would also be employed down the line to recreate historical icons such as Nelson Mandela to tell stories of cultural heritage significance.
Oh, my God. Why? We are such a dumb species. We are a horrible species. We do shit and we say we can't be stopped. We can stop it. We just don't.
I would watch like a John Wick with Nelson Mandela.
Do you want to know the other stars that the same management company is in charge of?
Do I, Dan?
Yes. No. Burt Reynolds, Christopher Reeve, Ingrid Bergman, Neil Armstrong, Betty Davis, and Jack Lemmon.
Grumpy Old Men 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
The reps for James Dean's company, family, also rep
with Ingrid Bergman.
Yeah,
Dennis the Menace 2.
all coming at you in Ocean's 8, the world's ending. Frolic you! This is bad. First of all, I read a thing the other day about robotics, and there's a point that I'm going to make with that.
Stay in your chair.
And this is a futurist saying, but in a fairly short period of time, 1/3 of all jobs will be gone due to robotics. And we just sit there and we go, wow, that'll be really bad for all of humanity, and do nothing because it can't be stopped. It can't be stopped. We can stop it. We just don't. Why do we do that?
You've got to buy all the life rights to these people so that you can't do this. Then that's your only
Donald
way to
A.
stop
Barton
it.
of Artistry Media
I'm
Group.
going to octaves that I didn't know.
Yeah, wow.
Donald A. Barton says, now that we have closed with this iconic figure, we look forward to rapidly closing our remaining actors. So that's the great thing, is to look at the Hollywood icons and see them being referred to as commodities to be closed in a deal. That's it's a wonderful world that we
I want them to all have like a review like the Rockettes. They're all kicking their legs together.
No, I mean, this is horrific. It is. It's horrifying. The only reason I'm not absolutely apoplectic as you are is that I have absolutely zero confidence that anyone involved in this project can do this in any meaningful way or in any way that makes this anything but an absolute joke.
That makes me want to see it more, though. I want to see the Fly type treatment on all of these people, because it's going to be terrible. It's going to be Lucasfilm and ILM could not get a 3.5-second shot of Carrie Fisher right, and she was alive at the time.
They couldn't give him off. I mean, they did this with Peter Cushing. It looked like a video game cutscene. It was
It works
awful.
Sometimes,
Works when
but
he's
not
in
most
the
of it.
reflection.
It works
It works really well in the reflection.
Which I thought was cool.
They could have
and then
left it at
they
that.
gave him close-ups, and I'm like, oh no.
So you're okay
Maybe
with it
that
in
will be the
short
character
spurts, is
Rogan.
then what you're saying?
No, you're talking about him playing a fairly significant character in the film, and I do think that
He's only seen reflected in pools of water.
Exactly. In
But
Vietnam.
would you, if he had a 30-second cameo and it was like in the reflection of a window, you'd be
because
okay
James
with
Dean
it?
has nothing to. You're talking about the distinction there is you're talking about actors who created specific.
Rebel
they
Without a
created
Cause
them.
2,
No,
and he's
fuck you! You're making me mad. Rebel with a 3. I am apoplectic. This is upsetting. This is horrible. This is truly this is why the aliens that have been clearly tagging and documenting Dan for a number of years, we've talked about it. That was a callback to an episode from months ago. Clearly, this is the point at which they say, oh yeah, screw it. Irredeemable, wipe it out, reboot, start again. Simulation reboot. This is why.
You
this
deflected
is why.
my question, though.
No, I don't
Would you
want
see it?
Rebel Without a Cause
Rebels
2.
without causes.
I do not want Rebel Without a Cause 2. No.
That wasn't the question I asked.
By the way,
though.
if there was a Rebel Without a Cause 2, it's called Bill and Ted, and it's coming out.
What if it stars Nelson Mandela?
had
He was a
Tarkin,
rebel, but he had a cause.
had Tarkin been in Rogue One only for the 30 seconds where his face was reflected in the window, would you have had a moral problem with that?
But I'm telling you the distinction. That actor originated that role. He did, and and it was the same. He had brought everything to that already, and they were using what he did with the permission of his family in a small way in a franchise that was related to it. So it's like James Dean.
Rebel Without a Cause 2, if they made one and he just showed up for 30 seconds, would you be upset? That's not the question. The question of whether you want the movie is irrelevant.
Two things.
Like
First of all,
deflection.
it's not a deflection.
Turn on your deflector shields.
No, I don't want Rebel Without a Cause 2.
That's
period.
not the question.
No, it's
If
the
it
same.
already
no,
happened.
It's not. It's the same thing. It is the same betrayal of what made that great in the first place. Star Wars and Rebel Without a Cause are not the same thing.
That's not the question I
Except
asked.
they both do utilize the word rebel with some
Not a trial.
frequency.
No, I've been Roth. I've been in that chair
But
being
she's not.
poked
You're
and prodded, and
not
I didn't
answering
appreciate
my
it
question.
then.
Yes, I am. I'm
If it
telling you
existed,
no.
though. But if it had to
shouldn't
exist. But if it did.
But it doesn't.
But if it did.
But it doesn't.
She doesn't want to engage in your hypothetical, Billy.
Yeah.
Leave her alone.
You know what? I don't sanction any more of my shenanigans today.
Fair
I'm
enough.
shenaniganed out.
There's not enough foot wine in here to get through this segment.
I haven't had any foot wine this morning. Ken Knapsack, who is now our engineer, is tired of us. Yeah, he is.
He's saying he's not our engineer.
He's like,
He's here sometimes.
He's here sometimes.
well, he's here
If
sometimes.
we see him on the street, we'll grab him and throw him in the booth and tell him.
The last 2 times I've been here, Ken has been here, and that means he works here.
Those are literally the only 2 times in the booth. But it's great to see him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Ken. Hey, guys. All right, for the 15 of you who are still with us, I think that you're agreeing with Dan and I, and you're right.
yes,
if you want to send your
correct.
complaints
It's
to
terrible.
Billy, it's at Billy Business on Twitter.
That's not true, but sure, yeah. See who answers those. I would
What's
love
your
to.
Twitter?
It's just my full name, Billy A.
Is it
Patterson.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have changed it.
Yeah.
That was not forward thinking of me.
It wasn't.
Oh well.
Roth, imagine if every classic film was part of a shared universe, and you could have crossover, like Wild Strawberries with Ingmar Bergman and Wild Strawberries would cross over with James Dean and Rebel Without a Cause. Like we could build to something like an Avengers.
That you're like, all right, fine, because I know if I have a long enough timeline, I'll find it.
So what I'm hearing is you just want to break my spirit.
Grease 3. All of the originals from Grease 1 and 2 in their prime form.
You could probably do that.
Yeah.
Okay, found it. Thank you.
Obviously.
Grease 3.
Grease 3.
Grease Thunder.
Bye. Did you not see Grease 2?
I did.
I want a cool
Can play us out.
We're done. If it's cool enough, he will burn me through.